I'm excited to come to all of you this evening with Faculty TED Talk. And I have Clark's, I think, going to try to, here we go, roll my presentation here that is titled, I'm wondering if any of you here can relate to this title, Sweatpants, Screentime, and Paradigm Shifts. So coming to you tonight with tips for easing back in. And those E's are going to hopefully make a little bit more sense when I'm done here in just a few minutes. So thanks for being here tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. My first question for all of you is, how many of you in the last 18 months have Zoomed or taken a conference call from an odd area? All right, I want you to type in the chat the craziest place you've called in from. Right? Maybe in your car, from a parking lot, your laundry room, basement, backyard, on the couch while replaying a kid's cartoon for the 100th time, or maybe, dare I even admit it, the bathroom, as you see in these images here, right? It's happened, I'm sure.
It's a no shame zone, Ashlie.
No shame. I'm looking, the swimming pool. I like that, Jody Lee. Look at this. The screened in porch, definitely car, doctor's office. Oh, Michael, the wilderness of Yosemite. I love that. That's great. Rocky Mountain National Park, soccer games. Yeah, that's what ferry boat, my closet. This is good. This is good. Well, I love that. Keep them coming as they come. The idea here is that the last 18 months have undoubtedly changed, at least in some way, the way our organizations and workplaces operate. So whether you went from commuting to a building to a makeshift in-home office practically overnight, or maybe the way in which your organizations do business, right? Churches made its way into our living rooms. Even more retail shopping is done via our phones and computers than ever before. And I'm assuming your coaching clients, employees, and colleagues are used to seeing just half of you now, with so many meetings changed to the virtual environment. It's safe to say our culture has experienced a paradigm shift. Coined by philosopher Thomas Kuhn, the phrase paradigm shift originally served as an explanation for how science changes over time. When we think about extreme advancements in medicine, technology, space exploration, that's fundamentally changed the study of those fields. But paradigm shifts have also expanded to include references to the changes in social sciences, business, even social movements. Today, a more broad working definition is an important change that happens when the usual way of thinking about or doing something is replaced by a new or different way. All right, let me repeat that. An important change that happens when the usual way of thinking about or doing something is replaced by a new or different way. So as I've been digging into the latest research coming out of business, leadership, and coaching fields, I'm seeing a general consensus that what we've experienced and continue to experience is indeed a paradigm shift in both the ways our organizations operate internally and maybe externally. Externally might include ways in which traditional brick and mortar stores have closed up their storefronts in exchange for online shopping and delivery, or the new forms of advertising companies need to use to attract potential customers. We could spend hours talking about changes to traditional marketing, sales strategies, and e-commerce. But tonight I want to focus more on the internal workings of our organizations. Your location, structure, communication patterns, and what this paradigm shift might mean for you as leaders and coaches. Keep in mind, these ideas are fluid and certainly don't apply as a one-size-fits-all. Some ideas have been taken from decades-long research on things like work entry after illness, injury, deployment, maternity leave, a particular area of interest for me. However, some of the same themes apply as we consider a type of re-entry occurring for many of us as we've headed back into buildings, our kids are heading back into schools. Other pieces of this research are much more recent, surrounding specifics of our pandemic And so the peer-reviewed research hasn't quite caught up yet. I also want to present the caveat that these findings can mean many different things depending on the type of organization and your role in it. Some of you might be thinking, I never left. I've been back in an office for over a year, or I already work from home, nothing's changed. But while your status may not have changed, chances are at least something, whether it's your organizational or coaching structure with clients, or life changes with your work team and colleagues, or your industry as a whole. I'm thinking oil, lumber, the millions of Christmas presents that are rumored to remain overseas this year. So what does some of the research say, and how might it apply and influence us? So here are 3 takeaways for easing back in. The first one, as you saw on that slide, is emotions. A recent Harvard Business Review article said what I'm sure many of us aren't surprised to hear. Employees are anxious, either because of what it's like back in a workplace, temperature checks, social distancing, levels of cleanliness, or because of what they're leaving at home, caretaking responsibilities, again, growing accustomed to sweatpants and Zoom. They cite that 65% of employees want to remain working at home. 33% would like a hybrid option. And this is research just garnered within the last 2 months. From an even larger perspective, I'd like to share a recent Washington Post article written by social psychologist Amy Cuddy. She wrote about pandemic flux syndrome. I know I personally had an aha moment when I read this work. It kind of reiterated how many of us have felt the past year and a half. Some anxiety, some sadness and detachment from our social circles and that real world. And in the past, however many months, many of us have started to re-enter some of these things. But now all of a sudden there's some retreat as well. Those feelings of excitement have been replaced by some anxiety and fatigue because things aren't like they're used to. There's that paradigm shift again. Psychologists and neuroscience claim that we've been operating at surge capacity, right? Another phrase for survival mode. The problem is that surge capacity is only meant to last a short while. It gets us through that Ironman competition, the exhausting international work trip, maybe even survive the holiday season, but it's never intended to last upwards of 2 years. So what's the takeaway? Empathize and attune. Find out what your employees, clients, and customers want, how they're feeling, maybe directly or indirectly, anonymous surveys. Share some of this research with them. Many short articles and podcasts provide helpful tips for navigating this pandemic flux. Be compassionate about the household paradigm shifts that may have occurred in the past 2 years. Things we as leaders and coaches may not realize are going on behind people's doors. And when possible, don't rush to get back to an old normal. In fact, that's the thing about paradigm shifts. The old normal is likely gone. Too much has changed. It's time to embrace the shift and look at our current landscape as a blank slate for new opportunities, new routines, a way to promote more efficient and effective ways of running our organizations, whether you're in a church, a warehouse, an office building, or a fast food chain, right? The second E, enmeshed. The past year and a half showed us that a lot of the work or organizational functions do not have to be done in a physical location, as we talked about with that question, right? Your closet, your soccer game, you're taking Zoom meetings. Anyone else have a virtual doctor's appointment recently? No, I have. Instead, our digital age has allowed many of us, even before the pandemic, to work and attend school from anywhere in the world with an internet.
Hey, Ashley, why would you have a doctor's appointment? Anything going on with you?
Just a little something, checking on this turkey that's almost done cooking.
She's got a turkey that's almost cooking, guys. She has to go to the doctor.
Exactly. Luckily, delivery is still done in a hospital and not over Zoom, because that might be a whole nother story. So the thing with this digital age, John, is that the scholars too suggest that this trend is not going anywhere. It's good news for our online institute. But really, the last year and a half has only propelled the paradigm shift of education, work from home setups, even personal communication methods. Thank goodness for FaceTime. Research from the lens of the work-family border theory is exploding. In decades past, the border between work and home was clear, solid, and not very permeable. If you think back decades, you traveled to an office, you clocked in, you did your blue-collar work, you clock out on Friday at 5 p.m., and you don't think about it again till Monday morning. So many of our organizations have changed, but now even more so when work has physically come inside our homes, required office setups, increased internet speeds, creativity in family scheduling. That border has never been more blurred. I know personally speaking, I've come to know my colleagues even better as kids, spouses, and pets. Michelle, I'm talking to you and your kitty, have made appearances in our meetings the past year and a half, right? I love it. So what's the takeaway? My opinion, embrace the blend. Realize that work-family border may never be defined again. If possible, consider production over time. 8 to 5 work days have been on their way out for a while, perhaps even more so now. Instead, keep the traditional, the necessary working hours and maybe be lenient with some others. Celebrate work being done, whether it's done at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. And maybe limit some of those synchronous meetings, but when you have them, make them count, right? Make them count. That's the key one. The third one I want to leave you with is explain. If there was ever a time to over communicate, now might be it. And this doesn't mean just communication about the pandemic. An August Harvard Business Review article stated that, employees do want some details on COVID-19 transmissions, workplace precautions. That's just one piece. But after kind of being away for the better part of 2 years, people may just be unsure of their role in the organization or what other things have happened, department-wide, company-wide. Have organizational dynamics shifted, aspects that they may not be privy to. So perhaps if you haven't done so already, a state of the church, state of the company, state of the organization meeting or video needs to take place. Make sure that communication is two-sided. The explanations that you share about the trajectory of the organization, what a return looks like. A similar article cited Amy Edmondson's work on psychological safety and organizational trust. That's key. She says one of the greatest dangers in organizational environments are when conversations aren't had or avoided. It creates fear, right? And we know that fear is not a good thing underlying organizations. So the takeaway, don't double negative here, but don't just assume your clients or colleagues don't want to know or need to know. Share with them what you can, right? Acknowledge their fears and concerns, be consistent with your communication methods. I know that there's a million ways to reach your audience. Doesn't mean you need to exhaust all of them. Of course, recent research suggests that digital fatigue is far greater now than ever before. So employees, coaching clients, customers shouldn't have to check multiple platforms to find your latest communication. Choose what works best for you and your team and stick with it. Choosing a consistent day, week, or time is also recommended. Anxiety lowers and trust builds when people know that they can count. Maybe it's a Tuesday morning update sent via email or a Thursday afternoon Zoom open forum where employees know they're invited to listen and ask questions. Just a couple little tips there. So there you have it. Right? We've all experienced and continue to experience a paradigm shift in the way our organizations operate, at least to some extent. With this shift comes growing pains, but when reframed, it also presents such great opportunities to create new methods and improve our overall work-life experiences. So keep these ease in mind. Emotions, right? We all have them. Use the skills you're learning in our programs to tap into yours and attune to others. Enmeshed, come to terms that this work-family border may never be rebuilt. Right? Recognize that this looks different for everyone. So be patient, offer solutions, explain what has happened, what is happening, what you anticipate might happen in the future. employees don't expect us to have a mirror ball or a glimpse into God's grand plan, but we do want to feel in the loop, and building trust through communication is key. And I'd like to leave you with a fourth E, if I may. I think earnestly pray. Earnestly pray to God. And I think we can all trust that He will take care of the rest.
Ashley, thank you. I mean, that was so timely. And it really made me think of how, in a way, all of this has to do with a lot less external structure and a lot more of us depending on internal structure. You know, the second stage of the character capacities is separation, where you learn how to make your own schedule and say no when you need to, and own your own thing. And for years we've had bells and whistles, like it's going to happen at 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock, and now it doesn't have to. And some people panic and say, well, where's all the bells and whistles? I need to have that rigidity. But grown-ups don't need the rigidity. Grown-ups need to know what the goal is, what the project is, where you want to go. And so it helps us to kind of develop that internal structure that doesn't need all the outside stuff. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. I think you're exactly right. I mean, in elementary school, there's a very strict bell schedule, and there's a schedule, right? Kids do this and this and this and this and this at certain times. And that's good for where they are developmentally, right? But you know, when we're adults and we're working with adults, some of that probably needs to come away a bit, and it comes back to trust, and really organizational trust undergirds a lot of other factors of success that we see. So
it reminds me of what Paul said in 1 Corinthians 13 when he's talking about love and growth. And then he says, when I was a child, I spoke like a child and thought and all that. And he said, when I became a grown-up, I put away childish things. And so if you've had to have somebody, you know, like with their iPhone or a timer or whatever saying, do this, this is the time to say, what's my goal today? And maybe like Ashlie said, I can do it at 3, I can do it at 7. And you're going to find something very cool. It's a thing called freedom. And God meant us for freedom. So Ashlie, thanks for, you know, helping us to get out of jail with this whole thing.
you're welcome. You're welcome.